I, female 50, really need an outside view on this because I feel like I'm being gaslit by my husband Marcus, male 53, and his family. It all revolved around a restaurant that Marcus and I started together in our local town, which ended up becoming a super successful location and was even recommended in a national travel log. It was an integral part of our lives together, kind of like our own baby. And Marcus and I made the perfect team. He handled the business end of things while I used culinary expertise and my friendly nature to become the face of the restaurant. There was never a lean period for our business, and we slowly began to win more and more accolades. We even did a cloud kitchen during Rona, the first of its kind in our area. It kind of became a must visit location for travelers and a frequent haunt for locals. However, on the personal side, I had quite a few tiffs with Marcus, and they mostly related to how much of a pushover he was when it came to his family. I guess it mainly boiled down to him not being able to say no. If his parents wanted to borrow our truck, even though we needed it, Marcus would lend it. If his uncle wanted us to comp all his meals at the restaurant for months on end, Marcus wouldn't say anything. I guess I tried my best to make sure that it wasn't like we were being taken advantage of, but of course, that made me the villain in his family's eyes, and they often talked about me behind my back. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate and understand the importance of sticking out for family and doing favors for our loved ones, but it was just way too excessive with Marcus's family. Try as I might, nothing worked, but my husband was still a wonderful man. I guess it wasn't the worst thing in the world that his fatal flaw was his overbearing generosity, right? It wasn't until a couple of years ago when my husband suddenly brought his sister on to work at our restaurant. My sister in law, Beth, female 40, has been dealt the short end of the stick when it comes to life. She got pregnant when she was 30, and her long term boyfriend couldn't handle the responsibility and ended up skipping town. After that, she's been invested in raising her child and was working a soul crushing corporate job. So, when our business was picking up pace, sister in law expressed an interest in joining me on the restaurant manager marketing side of things. I was immediately reluctant as sister in law had not worked in this field before, and to be honest, hadn't ever bothered building a bond with the local community as I had. I mean, I'd often invited her over for our restaurant's outing at farmers markets or stalls if she was genuinely interested in becoming a part of the business, but she always ended up flaking at the last moment. Sister in law ended up quitting her job due to the lack of excitement it generated in her during the pandemic and eventually began to push Marcus more and more for a change to work with the restaurant. I was dead set against this idea, but my husband felt that we should do it to ensure the financial safety of our niece. I do love sister in law's kid, but I don't think there was any chance of ruination if her mom was out of work for a year or so. There was savings, and I wouldn't even mind chipping in to help her out. My main issue with bringing her to work at the restaurant was her complete lack of passion for the food, the people, and everything that made it tick. In fact, after a point, I even relented and asked if Marcus would be okay taking his sister on in a more clerical or businessy role. But he said no, she doesn't want to get back into the same boring work that she was doing. And after that, he ended up going over my head and appointed Beth as basically an equal partner in the business. I was annoyed, but since we had started everything so informally, I couldn't do anything legally. And to be honest, that's not what I wanted to do anyways. It wasn't like me to bicker in court with my husband and just voice my frustration at not being treated like an equal partner. The 2 years when Beth was on board with me was mind-bogglingly frustrating. She never considered the tastes of local people and tried to get rid of staples on the menu based on whatever fusion dish seemed trendy. And people were put off by it until I tweaked the recipe and put out the fire she had caused. It was getting a little too much for me, and I told Marcus that I would be retiring from the restaurant. We had more than enough money to do so, even well before bringing Beth to work at the restaurant, but I kept going because of how much the business meant to me. However, with my sister-in-law there, the fun was sucked out of everything, and I just couldn't find it in myself to go on. Marcus said that he understood my perspective and was okay with that, and he too would retire with me. Obviously, this raised alarm bells in my mind about who would take over the business. And I asked, so will we sell it off to an investor? Shut it down? What'll happen with our restaurant, Marcus? And he nonchalantly replied, oh, I was thinking we could make Beth the owner, keep it in the family, you know. Hell no. This was the worst idea ever. I wasn't shy about voicing how inept Beth had been during her time at the restaurant, and how that was directly contributing towards my decision to retire, but my husband just waved it off. I was furious, but also too tired to keep fighting him on this, so I eventually just rolled over. As much as it hurts, I am enjoying my retirement right now, and things are going really well in my personal life. Marcus has also been a great husband without the business in the way, but every time I pass by our restaurant, I see how badly it's doing, and some evil part of me ends up gloating at that. One night, Marcus sheepishly brought up the same issue and asked me if I would be open to working again to show Beth the ropes. I told him that I'm more than happy where I am, and he didn't push me on it any further. However, the very next day, Beth called me and basically ended up groveling and ranting about how much money it costs to run the business. She basically said that she'd be forced to sell unless I could come in and bring the restaurant back to its old self. Part of me was swayed by her call, but I don't think I should put in all this work because I know it'll just be a temporary fix unless Beth learns how to run the business. On the other hand, it's clear that if things go on the way they are, Beth will have to sell the restaurant for peanuts and basically erase our legacy. AITA for not jumping in to help. Update 1. I read through your comments and I think the best one was somebody saying I should get back in there as a consultant. Not only would I not go down with the ship if Beth doesn't listen to me, but it also allows me to set my own pace when it comes to work and improvements. The thing is, my sister-in-law is a nice person, just not good at this business, so I guess if I really explain the situation to her, she might be open to change. I'm a little hesitant though, because when I did work with her, any advice given to Beth went in one ear and out the other. I told Marcus about my idea of coming in as a business consultant, and he said that it was a fine idea, and Beth was invited over for a drink and discussion. When I told Beth about my idea, she was open to it, and from tomorrow, I'm going to shadow her on her daily routine to see what needs to be fixed. It kind of reminds me of the show, Kitchen Nightmares. My husband and I love watching that show, and thankfully, we've never felt like our business would end up on the receiving end of Gordon Ramsay's wrath, but I guess I'll have to get it back in shape before things start going downhill. Update 2. Oh boy, I just finished my first day following Beth around, and then we discussed her management style and plans for the business. I think her more global perspective on cuisine is cool, but she hasn't realized that the townsfolk here aren't open to that. We then reworked the menu and decided to shut the restaurant for a few weeks and get a grand reopening in place. I spoke to every contact I've built in my 8 years in the business, and they're all hyping up the relaunch. At the same time, I told Beth about the ins and outs, rivalries, and alliances that drive small town businesses, and that helped her realize the importance of building connections. It's just a small step forwards, but hopefully I'll help her make our restaurant more profitable and keep it a staple part of the town for years to come. Update 3. The reopening was a success. I guess word got out that I was back, and that drove the crowd in, but then the food made them stay. I delivered a speech that praised my lovely sister-in-law for learning, growing, and taking my input, and even revealed that one of the top-selling dishes of the day was her idea. It doesn't seem like much, but it sure left an impression on everyone and helped her get her foot in the door in terms of goodwill. Definitely, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I think we're on the right track. And Marcus has been extremely grateful to me for stepping in. With a little more work, I can retire with my mind at ease about the future of the restaurant. NTA, but I strongly feel that you should go back to work in the restaurant. I know it's tough to have a business with family, and it ultimately gets messy as it did here, but your passion and love for the restaurant shouldn't vanish just because of this. Also, your husband needs to learn to not say yes to his family all the time. NTA, I get where Beth is coming from when it's about her career and feeling unfulfilled, but she can't insert herself into someone else's hard work and expect to get the same results as them. OP, I think being a consultant was the perfect way to make things professional and mitigate the whole family angle. Next story. I'm 21, female, an international student studying abroad, UK. I live with 4 other people, but we each have our bathrooms. We share the kitchen, communal area. For the past few weeks, my depression has worsened with school and work. Hence, I stopped eating properly. After finding out about this, my twin brother flew to Manchester, where I'm staying, from London, where he's studying, to cook meals for me. He made quite a lot and put them in the freezer so I could reheat and eat them. I've been feeling a bit better now. Now, the issue is I suspect my housemate, Jenna, has been stealing my food because every time I check, they're missing or look like someone has touched them. I don't suspect my other 3 roommates because 2 of them are vegan, vegetarians, and the other is currently back home with his parents due to the family issues. I believe that she knows my class and work schedule because it looks like she cooks my food when I'm not around. But 3 days ago, I came home earlier than expected and walked in on her cooking my food with her friends. I lost my patience and screamed at her. I called her many names and embarrassed her in front of her friends. She had been lying to her friends that she cooked it, and they were embarrassed for her and left. That night, she sent me a long paragraph on how disappointed she was in me, and she took my food because she was hungry and had financial issues. I feel bad, but that's not my problem. So I told her to pay me for the food that she had taken because I'm not rich. And my brother had taken the time off his work and school to cook for me. She called me a bitch and has been ignoring me since. My other housemates are on my side, too. But they could be biased because they've always hated Jenna. She doesn't clean up after herself and brings in a lot of friends regularly, which disturbs their study schedule. My family think I'm not the AH, but my friends think I should have handled it differently. AITA? Your roommate is embarrassed because her actions were embarrassing. It'd be bad enough if she was pinching your food because she was hungry and out of money, but she had to take it a step further. She stole your food so she could treat her friends, too. She's embarrassed because they're all upset that she included them in her bad behavior. Actions have consequences, and now she's got to deal with the ones she has earned. NTA. NTA because she stole, and also because we have student finance in the UK. I bet she probably did the thing a lot of students here do and was careless and blew through her maintenance loan on partying and takeouts, and that's why she's claiming to have no money left. Tell her to get a job if she's having financial problems. Universities in the UK are always hiring their students for open days and school visits and such. NTA, she stole your food, pretended she cooked it and embarrassed herself when you told her friends the truth, without realizing she'd lied, but OFC, that's not even the bigger issue. If she has financial issues, that is not your problem to deal with. and does not allow her to take your food that your brother took the time and money to make without asking. Anyway, good luck with your studies. I've been to visit MCR Uni and it seems great. But it was a shame I couldn't see all of it because the city's just too big to see in one day. IMAO. Next story. I, 28 male, have been married to Leah, 28 female, for 3 years, but we've been together for 7. Leah had been diagnosed with insomnia before we were together. I was genuinely baffled to know she would only really sleep half hours or sometimes not at all. She tells me not to worry about it, but sometimes I can't help it when I randomly wake up at, say, 4 a.m. to turn and see she's still awake just staring at the ceiling. She used to take medication for it, but it had some side effects, so she stopped. My father-in-law, 58, I think he should just be called Mr. Sperm Donor since he did nothing to earn the title of father. He left mother-in-law, 54, when my wife was 7, handling all rights, no child support, no visits, no nothing. Just left without saying a word at night. She was so devastated that she, a 7-year-old, would email him every day for 3 months asking him to come back, and of course, he never replied. 2 years ago, he contacts Leah and guilt trips her, saying he failed as a father. He wanted more experience and that he needs money since he lost his job. Leah has a good paying job, so gives him $3,000 and wanted to rekindle their relationship. I was hesitant, but she said that he apologized and she now has a chance to have her father back. A week ago, he called saying his new job required a trip to the city that we live in for 4 days and to make accommodations in our home for him. She happily complies. Context. He is a real health freak, exercises every single day, does yoga very early in the morning, that kind of stuff. He knows about her insomnia. 3rd day he's here, Leah slept longer than she did usually, sleeping from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. It sounds bad, but it's a big progress for her. Usually on days when she sleeps like that, I let her sleep because she will sleep in for a long time, kind of making up for the loss. He asks where Leah is. I tell him that she's sleeping, and this man runs up the stairs and starts loudly knocking on the door and shouting at her to wake up. I explain everything to him and ask him to let her sleep. He tells me it's not healthy and she shouldn't be sleeping in this late. I direct him downstairs and repeat everything I said in the last paragraph, also adding that her doctor also encourages it. He doesn't budge, starts going on tangents, shouting to wake her up, until I finally crack and tell him to pack his bags and get the frick out. He has a friend in the city. I tell him to go there, and if he doesn't comply, I will call the police. Threatening to call the police, I guess, did it for him, and he starts saying disgustingly vile things about me and Leah. Through the ruckus of it all, she woke up and heard everything he said and cried, telling him to leave, so he did. Now her aunt, uncle, and paternal grandparents are posting on their social media how he was only looking out for Leah's health, and how I'm trying to tear away a father and daughter. All this makes me wonder what a stranger's opinion on it all would be. So Reddit, AITA? NTA. Seems like the only reason he even showed back up is to take advantage of her financially. Unless he is a doctor, who the hell cares what he thinks about what is or isn't healthy? Maybe if he did more work and less yoga, he wouldn't have to come begging to his estranged children for money. If all of the relatives care so much, they should give him money for a hotel room. NTA, his concerns about her health make absolutely no sense. Sleep is vital to your wife's short-term functionality and long-term health. The fact that 6 hours is considered a really good sleep for her, and that those 6 hours started at 8 a.m., meaning she was most likely up for 20 to 24 plus hours awake beforehand, is incredibly concerning. If he was actually concerned for her health, he would have let her sleep as long as possible, hoping she finally clocks 8 to 9 hours, even if it was in the daytime. NTA, he wasn't looking after her health. You were. He was seeking to control her. He knew better than you and her medical professionals, and when you pushed back, he became abusive. He may have done you a favor, though. Money, accommodations, respect my authority. He only came out of the woodwork because you and your wife were now of use to him. He didn't care when she needed help, but now she's got money and a house he can benefit from. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.